you know what? I read a tweet that said, we've put people on the moon and yet we've never built the Clueless wardrobe app. And I was like, I'm going to be that girl. I'm just going to do it.
Bianca, welcome to the Seat of the Muse podcast. I am so happy to have you here on very short notice, but we love that I can catch you before you fly and I fly.
Keeping us both honest. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, of course. You're the founder and CEO of Wearing, the Clueless style wardrobe app brought to life. You've taken on a problem that every single girl probably has in their life, which I have every weekend, if not every day, where, we're sitting in front of our wardrobe, looking at our clothes and thinking, I absolutely have nothing to wear. And so I love that. And we're going to unpack it. And I think also what's really interesting about your story is how your two worlds have merged together from, your past experiences and your current experience, because I think there are synergies in it. So we're going to unpack all of this. So let's start maybe with you introducing to us what Wearing actually is,
I love it. Thank you so much. So I think you kind of tapped into the essence of the initial brand identity. But for us, it was very much an homage to Clueless, the epic movie that came out in 1995. But also this feeling of, exactly as you said, like I have a closet full of clothes and yet nothing to wear. And that, absolutely intrinsic feeling that, as you said, billions of women around the world get when they're trying to get ready for an event. They've got a pile of clothes on the floor. We actually called it like the floordrobe in our first.
Oh, I'm going to use that.
It's a concept. In our first marketing campaigns. And it was really about creating this feeling of wardrobe zen. How can we, in today's world where we have personal assistants driven by AI, where we have optimized every part of our lives, including our fintech journeys, our beauty journeys, our physical, our health journeys. And yet we don't have that for our wardrobes. And so I was really thinking about how can we not only democratize access to styling, because that's a huge theme, but also think about how we can bring this essence of wardrobe zen, this feeling of I have enough and I have a product in my life called Wearing that can help me make the most of what I already have. And so it was sort of deeply rooted in circularity and this notion of, and we call it our mission, but it's really thinking about how we can make sure that we have a world full of loved items and worn items.
And so walk me through a bit the idea, so I obviously just discovered the app, which is going to revolutionize my life. So,
Amen.
So how does someone navigate the app? What do we expect to kind of see? What are the, the actual experience?
Yeah, absolutely. So for us, we tried to build a world, and mind you, we started this quite early on now. So it's been a moment, and the world has shifted dramatically since we started. But the original concept was a personal stylist on your phone. So you take pictures of all of the clothes that you already have in your wardrobe. You'd upload them onto the app. We'd use computer vision and I guess early ML technology to crop and tag the images with computer vision. And you would then have a digital inventory of all of your possessions. And then a little bit like back in the day, people used to use a product called Polyvore, which was acquired by Essence. You can create 2D, basically canvases or outfits of the outfits that you want to put together. You can create lookbooks. There's a whole mood board functionality, a wish list functionality, which is incredible. Again, a way to kind of regroup the thousands of shopping tabs that you have across your browsers and your phone. So it's really, I guess, building a one-stop shop for your wardrobe. Now, today, we're sort of evolving that in 3 key ways. The first side is thinking about tapping into social. So to the point about democratizing access to styling, one of the most beautiful things that happened sort of post-product market fit for us was that we'd see people wanting to style their friends on Wearing. They want to go into other people's wardrobes and they want to put together outfits for them based on mood, occasion, and weather, which is really, really cool. And so that's a first piece of the world, I think, that we're building in, 2026 Wearing. It's social first. The second thing is thinking about how we can create a native experience when it comes to your styling experience. So whether that's, thinking about a way to communicate with personalized styling suggestions that are much more accurate based on your mood, the weather, your calendar, all of those things I think need to really be taken to the next level in today's context. And then lastly, we're thinking a lot also about, in a backlash of somewhat anti-AI sentiment, from our user base that is very circular, very sustainable, we want to think about ways that we can leverage human-based styling too. So really excited about bringing personal stylists into the wearing experience so that if you onboard, you upload your wardrobe, you're moving, let's say to Dubai, you could kind of geolocalize and get access to stylists that like your personal style and that want to basically help you. You know, it could be with bespoke mood boards, could be with packing and planning for trips, anything like that at the tip of your fingers.
That is so cool. I feel like, there is so much to offer beyond just, having your wardrobe on a platform, which sounds very simple in itself, but wearing sounds like more than, a fashion app, but also a behavioral platform about the wardrobe, which is, exciting with a lot of data.
Absolutely. It's funny that you say that. And I love that you launched with the word unpacked, because that's our whole kind of data analytics campaign, which is so exciting. And I think something that we've had over like 1 million requests for, which is a packaged up version of Spotify Wrapped, which we call Unpacked, which is a quarterly, I suppose, sort of insight into how your personal style is evolving, how your wardrobe utilization, so whether that's cost per wear, what you're actually wearing, from a carbon footprint perspective, is evolving, what you're buying, what you're loving, your top brands, your top outfit combinations. All of these things are things that actually, a little bit like Monzo used to do back in the day, where they'd send you, a monthly report on your spending. We can do the same thing in terms of wardrobe insights. And it's funny, you talked about, my background, but I think, for us, when we were building wearing, it was almost like fashion is its own asset class, and you're kind of investing into, assets, as Carrie Bradshaw says in Sex and the City, that are hanging in your wardrobe. And I think you want to understand how those ultimately benefit you in the long term, potentially when to resell, whether you're using them or not. And I think definitely Gen Z and millennials are really excited about that whole stats, Spotify nudge in terms of insights.
No, I totally agree. And that part on fashion as an asset class, we'll get to it later.
Okay, sorry.
No, all good.
Jumping the gun.
No, of course. I had a question about that as well. But I think now that you mentioned Spotify, that gets me to think about another aspect, like the other side of it, which is the business model. Because obviously wearing is free.
Yeah.
And I think in general, more than 90% of the apps are free, and they use like subscriptions, commissions, or ads to kind of have on after you build an audience. Is this the way of sequence that you had originally, grow the user, build the habit, and then monetize?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's an interesting one for us, as I said, because when we started out, it was a very different world versus kind of today. But I think, our core mission was always to say, we want to change the lives of billions of women around the world. We want to help them make better decisions when it comes to shopping. We want to enable them to make the most of the things that they already have. And the only way to do that is to offer a free product that actually helps change your behavioral patterns or uplift the positive ones, right? Without having a judgy tone, without being prescriptive in terms of, the styling algorithm that you're also building. And so, for us, the big vision was always the app, or at least major components of the experience, have to be free. And I think as we've kind of moved into more sort of AI heavy, COGS heavy, when we're thinking about, runway and I guess the cost of operating this model now at scale with 10 million users, we have to think about ways that we can put certain features behind a paywall with an upcoming subscription potentially. And I think that aligns very nicely, I'd say, with our audience, because some of our users don't want heavy AI features, and they want to benefit from the platform and the insights. And others want compute heavy, deep native experiences, which they're very happy to pay for. And I think that's what's really great about our current positioning, is I feel like you can hit two birds with one stone, and continue to offer and stay true to your mission with a free version of the app, while still monetizing high intent power users who are, daily actives, weekly actives, or even monthly active users of the app.
Yeah. And so we talked a lot about the users. So who is actually your biggest user today?
Yeah. Very different to when we started.
I'm sure that's why I said today.
I love it. Today, it's actually incredible because we have a myriad of different user personas. On the one hand, we have, ultra high net worth, family office, UBOs who have entire Hermes collections of handbags or, exclusive, pieces, runway pieces that they're almost cataloging like an ode to their fashion collection. And it's all sort of vintage high fashion. All the way down to kind of, I suppose myself, sort of millennials, busy women who are working in big professional careers, have little time. We've got a whole array of moms who want to almost have like an Apple family account where they're like, I want to style my husband, I want to style my kids, I want control over this whole universe, which is incredible. But the majority is still sort of Gen Z, which is really exciting because, you know, when we kind of kicked off, I think, you know, really struggled to fundraise initially and to kind of prove this concept. I mean, if you think about 2022 and you're saying to an investor, I promise that there's going to be an AI who has access to your calendar and your emails and your camera roll, will scrape all your kind of digital clothes from there with all of the interesting metadata, will have access to your whole lifestyle, and we're going to personalize fashion for you.
Yeah.
They would like, absolutely not. And so I think, you know, we've come a long way from trying to, you know, scale an audience predominantly organically, which was just Gen Z, to now being able to kind of broaden our niche a little bit and start to actually, you know, deliver a service that we think of as fantastic to an older audience who expects more and has very different points of view. But yeah, I think right now the US, LATAM, continental Europe is really where the core of our Gen Z audience is and lives.
Okay, amazing. And so obviously, you know, you've built this, but where did the idea actually come from? Was it a personal desire? Because, for example, for me, I actually have on my notes app on my phone, a list and picture of all the wedding dresses that I have. Because, you know, you have so many, as a Lebanese, I have so many weddings and I have different dresses. And sometimes I forget because it's an item I wear once a year.
Exactly.
So I have a list of, you know, all of them. So now I'm going to upload them on Wearing.
Yes.
But so how was it for you? Like, where did this idea actually come from?
I love this question so much. And it's like, it's such a throwback. So I was working in banking. I was in my mid-20s. And I mean, I'd always had like a passion for fashion. That sounds so crazy. Passion for fashion. As a non-fashion girly, it was, I think, just something that I always loved. I wanted to kind of cultivate a taste and an aesthetic and a point of view. But it was just not something that, you know, with South African parents was acceptable at all. You know, they were very much like, go out, get it, make money, you know, earn your stripes in finance. And I just remember kind of having this internal struggle of like, I would love to one day do something, but like, I will never have an idea. There will never be anything that I will be able to build fully from the ground up. And it kind of happened as a 3-part process. We did a town hall event at Goldman, I remember, with Victoria Beckham. Ooh. And I was like on the, you know, like helping out behind the scenes, trying to like make this thing happen as like a young analyst. And I remember like we were kind of getting her to exit the building or something. And she was like, she looked at me and she was like, would you ever start your own business? Wow. I was like, no. What? Obviously that wasn't my response, but I was just like, Victoria, in what world? I was like, Victoria, how? You know, and I said something like, you know, we'll see. I don't know, maybe something pops into my head or, you know. Yeah. And after that I was like, shit. Yeah. I think this is something that's going to happen. I don't know why, I don't know how, but I have a feeling that there's going to be an idea. And then to your point about your camera roll, I started to talk about, you know, how people were, I suppose, thinking about their wardrobes, how they were sharing inspiration. Obviously, Pinterest was a big thing, but, you know, what do we do about our daily lives? What do we do about the actual outfits that we're wearing? How do we optimize our existing wardrobes? I would talk to analysts, I would talk to MDs all across the bank. And the stuff that I would hear, I mean, honestly, the focus, they then got turned into like focus groups. Okay. And we kind of professionalized the whole outfit. You know, I cut my stripes in user research initially. But it all started about, you know, people would photograph actual outfits on their beds and keep a record. Oh, wow. People would have albums in their camera rolls about, as you said, like lookbook for weddings, lookbook for Christmas. They would have Google Drive folders. Wow. Like, people are wild. I even had like certain people at the bank who had Excel spreadsheets that they'd categorize their wardrobes. They'd created a macro to be able to basically decide when they could rewear different combinations.
With the like Excel macro.
Yeah.
How many clothes do they have? How much clothes do they have?
I mean, some of these women were, in my opinion, ultra high net worth. You know, they're like very senior stakeholders. Wow. But you wouldn't believe the insanity of the stuff that I was hearing. And then I guess it was like this introspective journey where I was like running to the office at like 5 a.m. with a backpack, with my clothes. I try and go to the gym before, I hit the desk in the morning, and I take these outfits out and be like, oh my God, this is terrifying. Who did I think I was when I put this outfit together? It's got absolutely nothing to do with kind of the context of today, or I could have optimized in so many ways had I remembered that I had these items, had I been able to actually interact in a digital way with my clothes. And I think that's where the whole concept kind of was born. And I was like, you know what? I read a tweet that said, we've put people on the moon, and yet we've never built the Clueless wardrobe app. And I was like, I'm going to be that girl. I'm just going to do it.
I love that you
And
did
here we
it.
are.
Yeah. I love that. Every aspect, like the 3 aspects you mentioned.
Yep.
I love every single one of them, like genuinely. Wow.
I know.
And so, I went on your website, obviously. The first thing I read was that you are a recovering hypocrite. And I had to ask, like, why do you intentionally have that on versus everything you've just told me?
Yeah, I think it's for me, and I think our journey, as I said, was really like rooted in the circular aspect of things. And I think I wanted to basically create a nod to a creator called Venetia Lamana, who talks about being a recovering hypocrite when it comes to your fashion consumption, your utilization, and just doing better generally when it comes to owning up to your fashion journeys. And so I think for us, when we started the brand, it was very much about like, I know, that I have an incredible closet full of clothes, but we want to build a brand that, acknowledges the fact that no one's perfect. A lot of people need to consume fast fashion from a privileged standpoint. A lot of people do it anyway, especially with a privileged background. And so it's really difficult to kind of create a product that can speak honestly and openly about how we can do better as a society without feeling judgmental. And so I guess it was the first step of saying, I am a recovering hypocrite, trying to build a product that helps me on my journey. And I would love to kind of welcome, millions of women who feel the same and want to embark on this without feeling bad about it, And hopefully with the way that we have built now Unpacked, which is this data aspect to wearing, we can help you feel confident, build your style, and actually help qualify a lot of your, again, asset class, but qualify your leads in terms of shopping inputs. So when I interact with my digital wardrobe, I'm always thinking about like, if I were to buy this product, how compatible is it with my wardrobe? How does it fit with my style? Is it worth it? Do I think I'm actually going to get wear out of it? And so that's why we sort of said recovering hypocrite, because whatever journey you're on, it's just about how we can help leverage data to inform you to help make better decisions.
I love that last part because I started to approach shopping like this.
Yes.
Every time I buy an item now, before really buying it as a separate item, I think about what I already have in my wardrobe that will complete the outfit before I buy it. And so that is great.
Exactly.
And so, okay, we said, you have recovering hypocrite on your profile, but you don't have tech founder. Like you don't have a tech background, but you build a huge tech, company. How did you actually navigate that? Did you have help? Did you learn it?
Wow. Again, it's such a throwback.
I know, I feel like it is, but we have to get it out of the way.
No, totally. I love it. I think it was really difficult for me. I think one doesn't quite realize when one comes from a sort of professional services background, how difficult the tech world is and how hard the VC network and landscape as a whole is impenetrable without serious investment into that network building and schmoozing and almost building your own founder brand, which is something that I regret actually not doing and not starting much earlier on. And I think that's going to be a big focus point for me going forward. But, really honestly, I mean, back when we started, you had to find a CTO, you had to work with an agency to kind of build a product. It was totally different. And I think what was really important to my journey was I had this incredible vision for what the product had to be, because I had spoken to, hundreds of women during the pandemic. Genuinely, I had focus groups on a weekly basis in my flat, in my friend's garage. We would do stuff that today I just look back so fondly on. And so I think because we had such a strong conviction around what the product ultimately has to do, the rest of the pieces somewhat fell in place, right? The user experience, the design piece, the brand piece, even the tech. I think as long as you and I was lucky to work on a lot of kind of deals that were either directly related to fashion tech or that were adjacent. And so I think I had a good enough understanding of the foundational concepts. But I think, ultimately it's all about just finding great people to work with. And I think if you invest in that early on, which is what I did, made a lot of mistakes along the way. But I think that really helps build a tech product and a tech company with potentially non-tech values. And I think that can have a huge edge to it. We did things really differently. We work a 4-day work week. We have unlimited holidays. All of these things are sort of the antithesis of, I guess, what tech is today in hardcore startups that are kind of grinding to, working 100-hour weeks. And so I think that was interesting. Now it's very much about finding the right leadership that can actually scale the business and, build a sort of 20+ person tech team in a culturally relevant way and in a tasteful way. And that's a big challenge.
Yeah, I'm sure. If someone today, wants to build their own tech company or like an app, or if you had to redo it today, having had the idea now, how do you think it would go about? Or if you have any advice to give someone, today?
Yeah, definitely. I would love to start again. But I wouldn't do anything differently on my side. I think they're great lessons. I mean, I think, look, from my perspective, today you can give away so much less equity and get shit done 10 times faster. So I think, for me, it would be the typical process, right? Which is really, really invest in doing that kind of upfront research and trying to validate the problem that you're solving. But I think we can do it today in ways that I would have dreamt of. I mean, when I started, we would, create a fake landing page and try and get people to pay. Wow. And then would say, sorry, there's no paywall. It's just a test, and like unhinge shit like that. Whereas today, I think you could, vibe code a whole app. I mean, I was at, Google Next on a panel chatting with a founder who's, just raised 160 billion, Series B. And he was like, oh, you know what? I love the concept of what you're building because I tried to vibe code it for myself. And actually, I couldn't quite get there.
Amazing.
But yeah, it just goes to show that I think, you can validate your research incredibly quickly at scale in a really cost-effective manner today and really focus on, I think, a much better and easier flow when it comes to the product features. I think one of the challenges that we have now is because we're a bit of a legacy app, it feels quite clunky. And I think now moving to a really smooth and seamless experience is really top of mind for us. But I think if you're building a company today, that whole cycle plus the feedback loop is so much easier. So I guess the tips from my side would be threefold. I think number one, really focus on a great co-founder relationship. Keep the team really small and make sure that you hire as many specialists as possible within that small unit so that you almost have, different silos within the business in a tiny team. And so communication is faster, it's more efficient, especially with high-powered, really ambitious co-founders or, early recruits. The second thing that I would say is you can do incredible things with your marketing funnel, which I think at the time you kind of couldn't. And so really investing in powerful brand and storytelling, including founder-led brand, I think is so important. And I would have doubled down on that. I would have doubled down on a creator program. So leveraging very cool, fun, interesting faces so that your brand has different faces on different platforms. And lastly, something that I did really well, which I loved, and I think today has never been a better time to do, is build an advisory board really early on. So think about, the small team that you're building, the small tight core unit. How can you amplify expertise? How can you amplify network reach or core competencies by building an advisory board and giving away equity for that? And I think that works incredibly well to spur not only innovation, but also keep a small team honest and working really fast. Because I think speed of iteration, when we're thinking about how one delivers features at scale today, is so critical with huge LLMs at everyone's fingertips.
Yeah, I love that. And I love the third point about advisors, because I was literally recording another episode this morning and she said the exact same thing.
So
about,
cool.
having great advisor around you and being surrounded by the right people.
Yeah.
So that is key. And so in your first month, throwback, I know, I'm sorry, but it's to get to the to today. In your first month, you had 20,000 downloads. Today, you're north of 10 million users. Can you bridge those numbers for me? Because I'm sure it wasn't a straight line journey. So I do want, the ups and the downs and how you got to there today.
Wow. Shed a tear.
You can make it a bit short. you can shrink it as much as you want.
No, it's great. And I think it's so important to look back on these things as a founder. One tends to never do it because there's always the next bridge to cross, you know, the next fire to put out.
Exactly.
So, I think for us, it was really key to try and show organic growth very early on. The market was very different. And so, when we were raising our first rounds of capital, it was very much growth at all costs. And so I think initially we kind of solved for, okay, how can we show that we have best in class CAC, so that, once we get this funding, we can really double down and actually, show exponential growth and that kind of hockey stick that investors are looking for. And we can do it in key markets where the proposition really resonates. And so in that journey, we started big on Latin America. We started big on the US because we knew that ultimately that's where, the highest LTV customer would lie. And we knew that there were certain pockets of Europe, ex the UK, because the UK is our worst market.
Really? And you're based in the UK.
Which is so funny. I know. Tempt me to move to Paris any day. But we sort of tried to experiment with these pockets of different, markets in Europe. We knew some would resonate more than others. And so it was really about how can we create this, repeatable go-to-market where we get incredible press coverage that spikes, a big kind of uptick in downloads and installs and therefore active users. How can we get in front organically of super fun, culturally relevant young Gen Z creators on TikTok, on Instagram, who can organically talk about how wearing is going to change their life, right? Like how they never go on a trip without packing for some wearing, how they sense check every purchase with their wardrobe before they buy it to make sure it's a long-term investment purchase, all of those things. And then how can we drive kind of repeatable referrals where once you see your favorite creator on wearing, you want to kind of onboard all your best friends and you create that kind of, network effect and I suppose minimum viable close-knit group that is on the app and therefore makes you want to use it. And I think that really worked in these different markets. For us, we did a great job in terms of spending the first couple of million that we raised. And then we hit a really, really hard wall where, consumer investing had completely changed. As you know, like VCs were no longer wanting to fund growth at all costs. They wanted to see like a profitable model. But to your earlier point, we're a company that's all about data, right? We're a data company. And so it's really difficult to monetize without stifling growth, especially when you are not yet at that kind of critical mass number when we're thinking about hundreds of millions of items uploaded or, being able to really train, ML algorithms on a data set that is substantiative enough. And so it was really important for us to kind of balance that. And I think, we stuck to our guns. We didn't monetize. We had to find creative ways to fundraise in order to continue the growth. And so what we did was we stopped all paid activity, focused just on organic growth and building community in the areas where we were really, really strong. And that kind of initially the drop off was insane. Our whole marketing team was like, oh my God, we're never going to be able to pull off this organic growth flywheel. We're never going to be able to replicate what we were doing with a portion of paid ads. And I was like, no, guys, we've just got to do it because we have like 3 months runway. There's no other way. Like just keep iterating, keep refining. And I'm sure that we're going to make this work. And we ended up cracking it. And, now we have over 500,000 installs a month completely organically, just because we invested at a critical time in getting more efficient at organic growth. And I think it actually changed the whole way that we do business as a company because everyone has been on a shoestring budget. They have this mindset of, if I can't make it work with $1, I can't make it work with £100,000, And I think that's so exciting now as we've, just basically closed a big new round because it just means that the possibilities with that cash are actually 10x what it would have been if we closed this round 18 months ago.
Wow, I love that. That's honestly, and good for you. I feel like you probably had Victoria's in your mind.
Yeah.
Like, I have to do it for her, you know, like I can't
Come
let
on,
her
babe.
down.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, she would have been a great investor. You
Yeah.
just try and reach out to her.
And so, in the, you know, obviously there's been ups and downs. And as you said, you've hit a wall, etc. How was it for you, the journey as well as a founder, you know?
I think it's incredibly rough, especially as a solo female founder. One of my best friends is building in the CPG space. And she's just one of the strongest people that I know, ex-banking, you know, super headstrong, not afraid of hard work, is incredibly resilient. And I think, you know, when we have conversations about our experience raising capital for female oriented products, in a male, you know, VC environment, it's heartbreaking, because the questions that are asked and the scrutiny that you're placed under just makes the whole experience really grueling. And so there's also added cumulatively to that the stress of having to try and time the market. Because again, if I started today, wow, you know, we would have raised 10 million, I think, very easily, knock on wood, because the idea is just so prevalent and makes so much sense, even from a male lens. But I think, you know, in terms of the challenges, I was just always so convinced that this had legs because everything that we did was deeply rooted in talking to end users. And if you've had a conversation with a woman before about her wardrobe, how hard it is to put outfits together, how you're panicking ahead of a date night, trying to feel right in your clothes, it's gut wrenching. And I think because of that feeling and because of the fact that I'd speak to users on a weekly basis throughout this journey, and I still do it today, it kept that, in French we say fil d'Ariane, you know, that sort of, I suppose, pull for me to continue when things were getting tough, because I just knew that this would change people's lives. So I think, you know, I with a banking background was ready to take a little bit of kind of flogging from investors. I was ready to kind of go through the trenches. I think it was part of my DNA. I understood that was part of the equation. And I think, you know, for founders that are fundraising right now, I would definitely say that there are a lot of things that one can do to really limit the impact of hitting the wall, the downsides, things that I didn't necessarily do at the time. And I perhaps do have a little bit of PTSD around that. But I think it's just, you know, meeting a user where they need you to be, is just incredible. I mean, we did like a whole donations campaign with Wearing. When we had 1 month runway, we were like, we're absolutely screwed. There's no way that we can keep the company running. And we asked our super users to donate, and everyone came to the table. And one day we'd extended runway by like a couple of months. It was so beautiful. So I think, you know, investing in your community and building for, you know, your ICP, especially when you are the ICP, I think just keeps you going when there seemingly is absolutely no solution ahead of you.
Yeah, I think the power of the community is sometimes overlooked.
Crazy.
Like, it's insane.
Definitely.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, amazing. And so can we talk a bit maybe about your fundraising journey, you know?
Yeah.
I keep doing throwbacks. But I feel like, you know, you've raised a lot, and I want to get through the journey a bit and see and understand from you first, you know, as being a female founder, as you said, you know, raising from male predominantly, and then it's a like fashion tech thing, and whether, you know, raising your 10 millions is easier after you've done 1 million, or does it never get easier?
Gosh, it's such a good question. It's something that I talk about with my founder friends all the time. In theory, yes. In theory, yes. I think when we, especially talking about solo founders, it's really difficult because I think you leave an environment, like professional services or the creative arts or wherever you're coming from to kind of start a company like this, and you think to yourself, I've read a PPM, I know how to control F the hell out of whatever I need to do. You know, I understand the legal piece, I understand the accounting piece, I understand the finance piece at a basic level. Surely this is enough to kind of stand you in good stead, right? Like, how complicated must this be? I have huge transferable skills when it comes to sales. I think personable, And so, how hard can this process be? And I think you kind of somewhat naively engage in it.
Maybe it's better.
It's definitely better. God, if I had known, I would never have done it. No, that's not true. Victoria, this one's for you. But I think, as a solo founder, you really realize when you start that there's an incredible upskill that has to happen. You've got to be incredibly operationally minded to run a company, run it somewhat with best practices, pull off a successful fundraise, think about the structuring of the fundraise itself, how you choose your lawyers, who you try to get investment from, whilst also balancing the big vision and the sort of longer term plans for the business. It's incredibly difficult. And so I think I was well equipped, but I had no idea what was facing me. And now that I've done a successful large seed round, taking our total raise to well over $10 million, I think I reflect back on the early days, and it was much easier in the early days, which is counterintuitive because I suppose as you get more successful, or not successful, but more seasoned as a founder, you know what you need to do, right? About preparing your virtual data room ahead of the raise, about, going out to market, getting all these warm intros, driving FOMO. You know how to pitch, you know how to iterate when things don't resonate. You know how to get to a point where it's a flawless delivery, right? And so the only risk factor is the important risk factor, which is how are they going to, look at the business and agree that we've hit the goalposts that we need to hit for them to invest, and how do we drive FOMO? Those are really the only two things that matter. And I think as the stakes get higher and the complexity and the metrics that you have to hit get more and more difficult, it's actually almost an impossible game to pull off without serious backing or a serious network. Because no matter what investors say, these things often shift unless you have a hot shit round. It is incredibly tough for consumer or tech, fashion tech in this case, as a solo founder, unless you're a unicorn to be raising. It's just undeniable. And so looking back on, baby Bianca as a CEO, I mean, her pitches were terrible. The PowerPoints, like looking back, it was like a banking deck, There was nothing magical compared to what we're doing today with gifts and an incredibly branded experience and a really great team that's helped me put together the assets for a fundraise. But it was so scary, I think, because you just have no idea what you're doing and you're just praying to God that this works. But yeah, so long story short, easier in the beginning, just because you're riding on vision, you're riding on adrenaline, on endorphins, and you're so convinced that what you're building is going to work that you have the arrogance to sell it. And I think sometimes as women, oftentimes, especially if you go through a tough time with a fundraising lull that's been difficult in the middle, you have this PTSD, you know how hard things are going to get. And so you really have to try and bring back that arrogance, bring back that visionary approach, because ultimately that's how you make a good round sell, because you it's just irresistible.
No, I love that. And so imagine there's a woman now listening to this and it's her first time entering a fundraising, round, and she has a meeting next week. What advice would you give her?
My number is, give me a call.
I love that.
Oh my God. So many things. 5 crucial things. Number 1, get yourself a WhatsApp group with founders who are ahead of you, who've done it, but also who are right now doing it, because I think there are 2 different perspectives that are really important. You need support when you're going through this. And I think having other founders on speed dial is the most efficient way for you to quell doubts, move through obstacles, and make sure that you are not settling for things that you shouldn't be settling for. The second thing I think is a great legal team. It makes a huge difference in sense checking your initial reactions when you get term sheets through, when you're negotiating the finer points of a deal. If you're taking on strategic money, that can come with partnership opportunities. It can also come with, constraints that are really difficult sometimes to especially when you're so desperate to close a round and to kind of get out of fundraising mode back into the business. It's really hard sometimes to stay strong and push back with certain investors when some of the terms might not be right for you in the business, and it's hard to think long term. The third thing, in my opinion, would really be a personal support network. I think one doesn't realize, again, just speaking to my best friend going through this right now, it's so hard. And the no's are coming. It's not personal. That you mustn't internalize any of this, but we're all human and it's really difficult. And so I think, finding ways to recharge, finding ways to continue to believe in yourself, and having things that you do in this fundraising moment that bring you joy and that bring you confidence in yourself are really important. And sometimes having this personal support network can help you remember that when times get tough, and can help you think creatively if the round is not going in the way that you want it to. Because sometimes one has to pivot, one has to think differently, one has to, potentially reach out to a different breed of investors because the VC route didn't work, or because it's maybe not the right thing and one didn't get exactly what one wanted. And so I think that's really important. The last two things for me are really, really thinking strategically and working backwards from a plan post round so that you can field all of these different questions with a really, really thorough VDR. The more prep work you do, the better equipped you will be during the fundraise. And I think it decreases the time to answer so much, because you just have things that you can shoot off and say, page 5 on the appendix deck, explained here in this video, demo product, here in the test environment, if you're coming into our dev app or checking our tech or, whatever. And I think without that, you really, really will struggle. And I think it's really important, especially post fundraise, to have this plan, this 24-month plan, let's say, if you're working backwards, so that you can start to get your now new investors and potentially board members really excited about what you're doing. And you can get your team on the same page as soon as, because typically you raise a round and you go out and hire double the team or whatever that metric is. So I'd really, really invest in doing that up front. And then, lastly, we talked a little bit about advisory board, but I think that is so, so crucial and something that I regret not doing more of, particularly in terms of a mentor for me. So we have a great advisory board for Wearing, but I think I've now recently met some incredible women, who are C-suite, who are ex-founders in the tech, in the AI space. To your point about building a big tech company, you also really evolve as you raise these rounds as a CEO, and you start to learn how to actually fit into the role, because as a founder, it's not the same thing. And I think you get to a stage where you actually do have to be a CEO. You now actually have a bigger team that requires leadership, vision, culture setting, brand, identity, thought leadership. And so having a really, really seasoned mentor, especially for a solo female founder, is a game changer when you're doing a fundraise.
That is amazing. So we don't need to call you anymore. I'll just post this part separately from the whole episode and be like, just press and play here. There you have the advice of Bianca. I love that. And so I want to move now to, because we mentioned it a bit earlier and I said I will get back to it, but the wardrobe as capital. So because there's a stat I keep coming back to that I read, which is the average person wears 20% of their clothes 80% of the time. And so most of what we own, we actually don't use. And I am definitely guilty of that. So kind of walk me through what changes when you start treating your wardrobe like an asset class instead of just a pile of stuff, and your floorboard that you mentioned.
Groundbreaking stuff happens. And I think really interestingly, there are 3 core shifts. And we've started to invest in doing, research around this. We've worked with like the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. We have a lot of really exciting partnerships coming up to this effect, to really dig deep into the psychology, the financial well-being component around it, and also, I'd suppose, almost like the social component around it. And they're all kind of intrinsically linked in a way, because we know that our wardrobes are reflective of our identities, right? It's the way that we choose to show up in the world. Our wardrobes, unfortunately for my husband listening, are very closely linked to our financial situation. But they're also linked to, the way that we sort of, I guess, interact with our community and also show up in our communities. And so, there are three core things that we've seen as behaviors resulting from using wearing. And I can share stats later. I don't remember them all off the top of my head. But the first psychological one is my favorite one, which is that I think it was 97% of people report feeling wardrobe zen. They report feeling so much more confident and happy with their wardrobes when they have access to a tool like wearing, because it is such a grounding thing to be able to, especially I think in a big metropolitan environment where our wardrobe space is like smaller than our bathroom.
Yeah,
it's tiny. It's like the size of a couple of suitcases that
half
are stacked.
My wardrobe is in a storage, like,
exactly.
by the way.
One can't see what one has. One forgets the emotional attachment that one has to pieces. It's really difficult. You mentioned like context before. Like if you'd known, you would have worn something else. You would have felt different in a piece. And I think that's so beautiful because once you have access to a digital inventory, there's so much that can happen there in terms of emotional bonding to this asset, right? You can see it. Like I see you, which is so cute. We always talk about like our clothes being the good friends that they are in terms of wearing, because it's that you're interacting with an entity. And because it's digital, it has a life of its own. It's no longer a physical piece that's somewhere at the back of a wardrobe. And so that interaction, allows you to experiment more, hence the sense of well-being. It allows you to realize that you don't have to consume for a dopamine hit. And therefore, you're actually super content to play and experiment and find all these different combinations with the clothes that you already have. Hence our like Clueless shuffle feature where you can shuffle your tops, bottoms, shoes, which is so gamified and so dopamine driven, but it doesn't require purchase. There are loads of things that people talk about, especially around replicating their mood board items with their existing clothes. So recreating things that they like with what they have. And all of that contributes to this kind of sense of well-being. And I think just quietness, especially in an era where we're getting served so many ads on Instagram. We're constantly thinking about what are we going to spend our payday money on, because society has subliminal messaging baked into every single ad everywhere. And so we feel like it's divine intervention. But I think this product allows you to kind of take a step back from that. In terms of the financial piece, obviously the ability to kind of say, I don't need to buy new to feel new and to actually make the most of my wardrobe is the first piece. But there's so much research, from we've surveyed like 100,000 users that, report having a wish list feature helps them actually pass the 30 wears test or the 30 sleeps test. Which is if you've added something to your wish list and you've slept on it for 30 days, if you still want it, it's probably a good buy. Okay. If you look at it and you're like, graveyard, that would have been a terrible mistake. And so having this, I suppose, tool to, as we said before, qualify a purchase, almost like you'd qualify a lead, visualize this purchase and its compatibility with your wardrobe, try it on before you buy with virtual try-on, which is coming next week. I'm so excited. Nice. But also see how it fits, style it, get a feel for the piece before you purchase it, is so important when we're rethinking, especially as women, and reclaiming our financial independence and making sure that, to your point, we're actually investing in things that have a future that we will see ourselves wearing in 5-10 years. And when we think about the asset class piece, I think the big missing loop until now was really this like intelligence layer. Like, how is it that I have a digital wardrobe and it's not telling me when I should resell a piece based on how often I've worn it or whether it's trending? How is it that I have a digital wardrobe, but I don't have an area where I can sense check my purchases and get, a color analysis done and say, actually, babe, this orange is not the right one for you because you're a fair blonde. This is the kind of stuff that would be, a much better long-term buy. And so all of that intelligence is basically what we're building now, a way to really support you or support the customer when it comes to their purchasing, their styling, and their reselling journey. And I think that's going to fundamentally change the way that, we spend on fashion, because it allows it to be a really intentional, really exciting purchase, but also not a closed loop. It's something that can be moved on intentionally, and we can recoup, amortize us.
Yeah, yeah.
we could actually we could recoup value from the resale.
Yeah.
And that is baked into the whole thinking,
Yeah.
which I find very innovative and I think really speaks to millennials and Gen Zs. And then lastly, the community piece for us is so beautiful, because now you can go into your friends' wardrobes, you can style them. All of the behavior that happens on WhatsApp on a Friday night in the girls' chat can be moved into wearing. And I think that's just so beautiful, because it allows you to take the performative aspect of sharing outfits on Instagram and close stories and those type of things into a more intimate fashion-only environment. Again, that's not about consumption. And I see a future where, people will want to borrow from each other. They'll want to kind of sell to each other. And I just think tech is just such a great way to foster that with a really easy user experience.
I love all of that. And honestly, as you were talking, I had examples of my personal
Oh my God,
stories.
please share. I love this.
So the rule that you mentioned about something sitting on your wish list, I love, because literally before recording, I bought a dress that's been on my wish list for that's been on my wish list for some time. So I think that just says it's a good purchase.
It really does.
Let's see when it arrives next week. And then the point of sharing with friends, I 100% agree. So many nights I message my friends, I have nothing to wear. We're going out, so I have nothing to wear. And then I have a friend who'd be like, how about that tweed dress you have? And they know our wardrobes better.
That is such a good point. It's honestly incredible. And I think it's so linked to the psychological aspect where we just black out purchases. And I think we also have a weird emotional connection to things. There's certain pieces, as you said, I have a friend who's like, oh, we're going on a girls' trip. Why don't you wear that dress from your wedding? And I was like, what? Ew. And she was like, no, it's amazing. And styled it for me in such a different way. And I was like, oh, I've been labeling you the wrong way, girl. I'm so sorry. As in the dress. I need to be more creative when it comes to my clothes. And that's the power of community. Without that, one can't unlock those, realizations.
No, 100%, 100%. But honestly, I've had such an amazing time talking to you. But before we wrap this up, I want to end it in maybe a bit of a fun way and ask you a few questions so you can answer what comes to your mind.
Quick fire.
Yeah, we're going into your wardrobe. Most worn item in your wardrobe right now?
I'm going to pull up my app. Or is that cheating?
No, it's okay.
Maybe
Go
it's cheating.
Do it. Don't worry.
Okay.
If you know without looking at the app, answer.
Even better. Okay.
If you have to look, it's okay. It's made for that.
I just feel like I don't want to say the wrong thing. But okay, sorry. Let's go from the top.
Most worn item in your wardrobe right now?
My most worn item is a hand-me-down from my mom, which I have been bargaining to obtain since I was 12 years old.
Wow.
It's a vintage Bottega Veneta bag that she bought before the brand was cool.
Wow.
Or when it was
avant-gardiste.
Exactly. It was definitely on its ascent, but it wasn't like the prices of today. And I think when she gave it to me, it was one of the greatest days of my life, because I was every single picture that is printed around my home of my mom wearing this on trips is now me. It's mine. And I get to digitize it. And I actually added a picture of her wearing it as the inspo when I uploaded it to wearing.
I need to go check your profile for it. Now I'm curious. Okay.
Very, very meaningful.
Yeah, sure. Okay. The piece with the best cost per wear for you.
Oh my God. Such a good one. I would definitely say that it is my Kate boots.
Okay.
I had them on my wish list for 6 months, and I think the cost per wear is £2.90 or something.
Wow.
Because I've worn them thousands of times.
I love that.
Yeah.
Honestly, when I looked at the app and I saw that you can track the cost per wear, kind of like an ROI for your item.
Exactly.
I was like, this is girl math, because then it makes it easier to buy something expensive because I can see how much I've worn it and how cheap actually it is.
Exactly. But also on that point, it was one of my biggest closet hypotheses. When is it like too much to A/B test your wardrobe? When is tech optimization gone wrong? But yeah, like I think we're often driven to like buying things because they're on sale or because they're dupes or cheaper. But actually sometimes being able to show empirically that buying the thing you actually wanted, saving up for months and getting it is a much better way to do it.
I'm telling my mom this later.
Call me, thank me.
Okay, next. An item you thought you'd wear a lot, but didn't.
I know exactly which ones, and I'm so sad about it. I bought these incredible, okay, maybe there's a theme here. Bottega Veneta heels secondhand on a company that I love called Hardly Ever Worn It.
Okay.
And they were a bargain. They were like, I was just so proud of myself for securing this secondhand and at that price. They're turquoise. And I was like, it's gonna be that pop of color that I so desperately need in my, plain Jane era. And I've worn them 3 times.
Oh, wow.
And every time I put them on, I'm just like, I
Can't.
I don't know why. So if anyone wants to buy them from me, please DM me.
Good bargain here.
Yeah. Fines.
Okay. And then maybe the last one then, the item that gets you the most compliment.
Ooh, that's such a good one. Not a great answer. I shouldn't be buying fast fashion, but it's a gray COS bomber jacket.
Okay.
And I get stopped in the street and I'm
Really?
like, is it me? And then like, no, your jacket. I'm like, okay. But yeah, it's just incredible. And I think it's a good example of buying a fast fashion piece that you're going to love forever and is super versatile and goes with a million different things. So I wear it a lot. I wear it in lots of different contexts. It's very masculine, very oversized, and I love that.
Cool. I love that. Well, Bianca, honestly, thank you so much for being here with me. I know you're even flying next week, and it was so good to talk to you. A lot of things to take from this conversation that I'm sure will also help, future founders or current founders. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. It's been a blast.
You've been listening to The Seat of the Muse, and I'm so grateful you chose to spend this time with me. If something stirred you today, a thought, a feeling, a question, I'd love for you to subscribe and follow on your favorite platform, leave a review, and even share this episode with a friend. Your support truly fuels this space and helps invite more voices to sit down with me. Until next time, stay curious.